So here we are again, yet another royal scandal that sounds too theatrical to be real, and yet it's unfolding right before our eyes. This time, it isn't just about titles, tell-alls, or private jets. It's about something deeper, messier, and, if you believe the whispers growing louder each day, something potentially catastrophic for the monarchy's credibility. At the heart of it, a deletion, not a confrontation, not a press release, not even a comment, just a quiet click behind the digital curtain of Buckingham Palace, and suddenly, Princess Lilibet. If you stood still watching, you clearly have thoughts. Drop sitpane below and hit subscribe for more no BS breakdowns. Gone. Scrubbed from the official royal website without explanation. No statement, no clarification. Just vanished, as if she never existed in the royal registry. In a world ruled by headlines and optics, that kind of move speaks volumes because it says nothing at all. And let's be real, this wasn't some back-end technical error. This wasn't an intern forgetting to update the page. This was a strategic silence, a digital erasure with intent. In a family that measures everything from brooches to body language, you better believe every line on that website is curated to the last comma. So when Lilibet's profile disappeared, it wasn't a bug, it was a message. A cold, calculated message. And you can bet Meghan Markle heard it loud and clear. According to those closest to the Sussex camp, she's furious. Not the public-facing, smiling through it type of anger, real, visceral rage. Because this isn't just about a web page, it's about legitimacy, about identity, about her daughter's place in history. To Meghan, this is a personal attack dressed in formality. A power play designed to devalue her children without daring to do it openly. And worse, it plays directly into every narrative the press has weaponized against her for years, that she's an outsider, that her children don't count, that the family she built with Prince Harry is somehow less than. But here's the kicker. Meghan's not lashing out. Not publicly, not yet. That's what makes this different. This time she's not running to Oprah or dropping a Spotify exclusive. She's lawyering up, going silent, getting strategic. Because she knows this isn't just another media cycle. This could be a legal war over identity, succession, and institutional erasure. And if Meghan's gonna fight back, she's making sure the receipts are organized and the ammo is legal. Meanwhile, Prince Harry, silent, withdrawn, and if reports are to be believed, increasingly conflicted. He's spent the last few years trying to build a life away from the constraints of the royal institution. But the institution hasn't exactly let go of him, and it certainly hasn't welcomed his choices. And now, with his daughter at the center of what may be the monarchy's most quiet but ruthless retaliation yet, Harry's in an impossible position. Defend his family and escalate a war with his father? Or stay silent and appear complicit in the erasure of his own child? Neither option offers dignity. Neither restores peace, and both are eating him alive. Because for all the talk of Netflix deals, lawsuits, podcast flops, and documentaries, the thing that's always set Harry apart was this: he chose to walk away. But he didn't ask to be erased. He didn't ask for his daughter's name to be struck from the record like some footnote in a royal soap opera. And that's what this is: erasure. In the coldest, most subtle, most digital form. But why now? Why this? Some say it's a quiet punishment. A response to years of tell-alls and truth bombs. A final reminder from Buckingham Palace that if you bite the hand that once fed you, it'll take the silver spoon right back and erase your name from the family photo while it's at it. Others say it's strategic, that the palace is preparing for a future where only working royals are given visibility, and everyone else fades into the mist of royal history. And Lilibet, born in California, daughter of the rebels, is the first to go. But here's where it gets murky. The deletion of her profile isn't just symbolic, it's suspicious. because it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It follows years of rumors and inconsistencies about the children's births, questions about surrogacy, birth certificates with strange details. One report even claimed Archie's certificate listed a Colorado area code, a red flag for those keeping receipts and looking for slip-ups. Now, let's be clear, nothing has been officially confirmed, but the absence of clear answers from anyone, the Sussexes or the palace, has created a perfect storm for conspiracy to flourish. And now, with this deletion, those whispers are becoming roars. The real damage here isn't just reputational, it's constitutional. Because in the tangled arcane laws of royal succession, birth legitimacy matters. Titles aren't just PR, they're legal designations tied to centuries of tradition, inheritance, and power. If questions about how a royal child was born are ever proven to have merit, especially involving undisclosed surrogacy, it could spark a legal and constitutional crisis the monarchy hasn't faced in generations. This isn't just messy. It's unprecedented. And the silence. Deafening. Not just from the palace, who are experts at letting controversy die through dignified silence, but also from Meghan and Harry, who are suddenly choosing discretion over headlines. A move that in itself feels loaded. Are they preparing for legal action? Or are they trying to avoid setting off a constitutional bomb? Because if Meghan does come forward with documents, testimony, or worse, proof, we're not talking about another round of tabloid drama. We're talking about a potential redefinition of royal legitimacy. We're talking about the questioning of succession. We're talking about an unspooling thread that could stretch all the way to the crown. And that's why this situation is so volatile. It's not about a web page. It's about a war, one waged quietly, digitally, legally, a war of legitimacy versus tradition, of transparency versus secrecy, of an American-born princess's place in a 1,000-year-old institution that still refuses to acknowledge her existence online. But perhaps the most heartbreaking part of all this, there are children at the center of it. Real children, with futures, with identities, with birthrights that shouldn't be held hostage in a cold war between crown and couple. Children who will one day grow up and read all of this. Who will see their names debated like PR assets and constitutional threats. And maybe that's what hurts most. Because no matter who's right, who's lying, or who's pulling the strings, the scars left behind don't belong to Meghan or Charles or anyone else maneuvering in the shadows. They belong to Archie, to Lilibet, to two children who didn't ask for this story, but who are being written into it, one silent deletion at a time. So where does this go next? Maybe nowhere. Maybe it fades away like all royal controversies eventually do until the next one pops up. Or maybe, just maybe, Meghan fights back. Not with interviews, not with hashtags, but with cold, hard documentation. And if that happens, if the palace is forced to confront what it's tried so hard to avoid, then we may be looking at one of the most significant royal reckonings in modern history. Either way, we'll be watching. And so will the world. So, let's talk about the bigger picture here, not just the drama, not just the speculation, but the implications. Because whether you believe the deletion of Lilibet's royal profile was petty, political, or protocol, one thing is clear: something has changed. Quietly, significantly, and possibly permanently. This isn't just a family feud. This is about an institution recalibrating itself. When Buckingham Palace hit delete on Princess Lilibet's online profile, they didn't just remove a name. They sent a coded message through the digital corridors of royal communication. It was a silent declaration of intent. We are moving on without you. And in the context of monarchy, where tradition reigns and omission is often the loudest statement, removal is rejection. It signals that Meghan and Harry's children are no longer being treated as part of the future public-facing royal structure. Not because of anything the children did, of course, but because of the choices, actions, and, let's be honest, brand conflicts of their parents. Let's pause there, because this is about more than a snub. It's about legacy. Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor was born into a royal family and named after two of its most iconic women, Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Diana. That's not just a sentimental gesture, that's a legacy move. That name was chosen with intent. Meghan and Harry knew exactly what they were doing when they named their daughter after the Queen. It was a gesture of goodwill, yes, but also a claim. A way of anchoring Lilibet's place in the royal timeline, regardless of geography or politics. So for that same royal institution to now remove her digital footprint from their website, it's not just petty, it's strategic. It's a message that the name alone is not enough. The royal family has, in effect, begun drawing a line. One that says you may be part of the bloodline, but you're not part of the plan. And here's the twist. This is exactly what Meghan feared and arguably tried to prevent. If we rewind to the Oprah interview, to the Archetypes podcast, to nearly every public appearance Meghan has made since stepping back from royal life, there's been one common thread. She wants control over her narrative. She wants to tell her story, on her terms, in her own voice. But the royal family doesn't work like that. It doesn't trade in narrative flexibility. It doesn't care about podcasts, documentaries, or Instagram engagement. It trades in protocol, discretion, and centuries-old rules. And when those two value systems clash, someone's story gets erased. In this case, it sits. Lilibet sits. Now let's talk about the timeline, because the deletion of Lilibet's profile didn't happen in a vacuum. It came amid renewed tensions, Harry's court cases in the UK, the couple's fading popularity in the polls, the endless media chatter about whether they'll be invited to royal events or not. This wasn't just a coincidence. It was a well-timed move designed to reclaim the spotlight of control. And as all this unfolds, one person remains notably, almost eerily silent: Prince Harry. For someone who once famously declared, "What Meghan wants, Meghan gets," Harry has been remarkably absent in defending his family lately. Whether that's due to legal advice, emotional burnout, or an attempt to de-escalate, we don't know. But the silence is deafening, especially when it comes to something as personal as the recognition of his children. It begs the question, has Harry finally reached his limit? We've seen him evolve from the party prince to the soldier prince, to the humanitarian, to the rogue royal, to the podcaster and Netflix executive. But right now, he's floating in a strange liminal space, not quite royal, not quite Hollywood, and increasingly caught in the middle. And as the monarchy begins cleaning house, digitally and symbolically, Harry risks becoming the prince with no country. No firm ties to the firm. No active role in the crown. And if the royal family continues to edge his children out of the record, what's left of his royal identity at all? Now let's bring Meghan back into the spotlight for a moment. Because no matter how strategic her silence may be, this story affects her most directly. Meghan has spent years fighting to be seen as a legitimate member of the royal family, not just by marriage but by influence. She's tried to reframe what it means to be a duchess in the modern era, to merge activism with elegance, branding with duty, and for a while she succeeded. But now, with Lilibet's name quietly scrubbed from the royal ledger, it's clear that door is closing. If not slammed shut, then slowly and methodically sealed, one tab at a time. And that leads us to the unavoidable question, what happens next? Does Meghan go nuclear? Release documents? Names? Dates? Emails? Will she finally respond directly to the swirling rumors about surrogacy, about legitimacy, about whether her children were unfairly denied titles and protection? Or does she double down on silence, allowing the palace to overreach, so she can paint herself once again as the wronged woman in a rigged institution? And what about the monarchy? Do they think this is enough? that by quietly deleting a profile, they've solved the Meghan and Harry dilemma, that public attention will shift and the firm can resume business as usual. Because if they do, they're underestimating how connected the world is now, how digital breadcrumbs are never really erased, how public sympathy can flip in an instant if there's even a hint that children are being treated unfairly. And therein lies the danger for both sides. Because this isn't just about erasure, it's about escalation. We're looking at two forces, Meghan and the monarchy, locked in a standoff, each wielding very different weapons. The palace has legacy, silence, and institutional weight. Meghan has media, narrative, and receipts. And at the center of it all, two children whose names are now battlegrounds. It's a cold war fought with web edits and legal paperwork instead of speeches and sabers. But make no mistake, it's a war. And like all wars, the damage done in the process won't always be visible. Not right away. But years from now, when Lilibet and Archie are old enough to read the headlines, to understand what happened and how their names were used, what story will they believe? That they were protected from the glare of monarchy, or that they were erased for convenience? That SIP's a legacy no website can delete. And so this latest twist in the royal saga isn't just a scandal, it's a slow, methodical unraveling of what once felt unshakable. The British monarchy is recalibrating in real time, cutting ties, rewriting history as it sees fit. And Meghan? She's watching, waiting, and if necessary, preparing to fight fire with fire. Because in the war of optics, deletion is provocation. And the response? Well, that SIP's still being written. Because here's the thing about a digital deletion. It doesn't erase the questions, it multiplies them. Once Lilibet's name vanished from the royal website, the internet didn't go quiet. It roared. Conspiracy theories, some wild, some unnervingly specific, started flooding comment sections, Reddit threads, even mainstream talk shows. Suddenly, the question wasn't just, why was Lilibet's profile removed? It became, was it ever real to begin with? The digital void created space for doubt, and doubt is far more contagious than outrage. People who never gave the surrogacy rumors a second glance are now revisiting them. Why? Because the palace, in trying to scrub its hands of the Sussexes' drama, has left behind a glaring gap where certainty used to be. And into that void, suspicion creeps in. Fast. It's ironic, really. The royal family thrives on mystery and tradition. But in the age of receipts, screenshots, and social media archives, mystery breeds mistrust. And here's where the Sussexes face their own dilemma. If they speak up now, if Meghan goes public with documents, statements, maybe even visual proof of the birth, they risk looking reactionary, like they're flailing in response to a digital slight. Worse, they reignite an entire media cycle focused not on their work, their charity, their new business ventures, but their children's legitimacy. Again. But if they stay silent, the palace wins by default. The erasure stands. The silence hardens, and the Sussex brand, which is still, like it or not, built on royal association, suffers yet another credibility dent. And that's where we get into the business side of things, because beyond the personal hurt, this deletion has financial implications. Meghan and Harry's entire post-royal empire depends on one thing: relevance. And relevance, in their case, comes from their former status. They're not just content creators, they're former royals who broke the mold, married across cultures, took on the tabloid machine, and moved to Montecito. That's the story they sold to Spotify, Netflix, Penguin Random House, and beyond. But when the institution they left starts quietly editing them, and their children out of its public-facing materials, it creates a problem. Because if the royals don't consider them relevant anymore, why should anyone else? This is the quiet undermining of their value proposition. It's not loud, it's not tabloid ready, but it's strategic, and it chips away at their positioning in media and business. Look no further than the reaction from their partners. You'll notice there's been no big brand defense of Meghan or Harry lately. No Netflix spokesperson stepping in, no Spotify revival, no prominent PR allies coming to their aid over the Lilibet situation. It's not that these companies no longer like them, it's that they no longer need them, at least not as much as they once did, because the novelty has worn off, the bombshells have been dropped, and now it's all maintenance. Drama without payoff. In Hollywood terms, that sits when the hot new thing becomes a high-risk property. And that sits exactly the perception creeping in, especially when it comes to Meghan's rumored rebrand. She's been building up a subtle return to the public sphere, the lifestyle brand, the soft launches on social media, the whispered ambitions of becoming something like a modern-day Martha Stewart meets Oprah hybrid. Relatable but regal, polished but progressive. But how do you build a lifestyle empire on curated perfection when your daughter just got erased from the monarchy? It's a tough ask, especially when the royal family is staying silent, knowing full well that their silence forces Meghan to either escalate or fade. Because let's be honest, the palace could issue a statement tomorrow. We're updating our website. All profiles are being reviewed. Boom. Done. The storm quiets. But they haven't set, because they don't want to. And that tells us this is deliberate. It's part of a larger effort to draw a clean line between working royals and non-working distractions. And Meghan and Harry are firmly in the second category. Which brings us to Charles. King Charles has long walked a tightrope between father and sovereign, but lately it's clear which role is winning. His recent moves suggest a king who is consolidating power and cleaning house. Whether it's slimming down the monarchy, adjusting financial allowances, or deleting digital profiles, he's trimming the fat, ruthlessly. And for him, emotion doesn't seem to factor in. This isn't the grieving father trying to reunite with his son. This is the reigning monarch making strategic decisions based on legacy, optics, and institutional survival. And if that means sacrificing the Sussex children's visibility to protect the crown's image, so be it. It's harsh, but it sits consistent. Now let us talk perception. Because while royal watchers and media insiders are poring over these developments, the general public is picking sides. And the polling isn't great for Harry and Meghan. Across both the UK and even in parts of the US, their favourability is slipping. Not catastrophically, but noticeably. And it's due in part to exhaustion. People are tired of the drama, of the he said, she said, of the unspoken threats and legal battles. Even those who once supported Meghan staunchly are starting to ask why can't they just move on. And that's a problem. Because once you lose public sympathy, you lose leverage, you lose power. And in Meghan and Harry's case, you risk losing relevance. Because when the public stops caring, there's no one left to fight for your side of the story. Unless, of course, Meghan's holding back a final card. Because let's not forget, this is someone who keeps receipts, who wrote emails to the palace, who tracked who said what. And if she really wanted to, she could upend this entire silent standoff with one carefully timed media drop. A picture, a document, a name. Anything that forces the palace to respond, publicly and directly. But doing that means total war, and once that starts, there's no going back. So for now, we're all stuck in this strange limbo. A ghosted profile, a palace pretending nothing happened, a duchess quietly fuming, and a prince watching his legacy inch closer to irrelevance. Which begs the question, how does this end? Do we get another sit-down interview? Another memoir? Does Lilibet grow up and write her own version of events? Or does this all slowly fade into the background, until one day we forget there was ever a profile at all? That's the power of silence. It doesn't erase, but it buries. Unless, of course, someone digs it up again. And if you've been following this saga from the start, you already know this family doesn't stay quiet for long. And let's be real, when it comes to Meghan Markle, silence is never the final move. It's just the inhale before the next headline. Behind the scenes, there's every reason to believe Meghan is calculating her response. She's not the type to let something like a digital erasure slide without consequence. The palace may have pulled Lilibet's profile off the royal website quietly, but that move lit a match under something much bigger. Meghan doesn't operate in the shadows for long. If history has taught us anything, it's that she'll make her next move not when the world expects it, but when it can do the most damage. And she knows exactly how to do it. We've seen it before, first with Finding Freedom, then with Oprah, and again in Spain. Meghan and Harry know how to pick their moment. They're not just participants in the media game, they're players, strategic ones. Whether it's an exclusive with a trusted outlet, a new docuseries, or a just happened to be filmed moment of vulnerability, they know how to tell their story in a way that shifts the entire conversation. So what's stopping her now? It could be timing. Meghan may be waiting for the right news cycle, the perfect brand rollout, or even the next royal scandal to create a contrast. Because if she's going to respond, she'll want maximum leverage and minimum blowback. The stakes are too high now. This isn't about clapping back on Twitter, it's about protecting her children's legacy, her own credibility, and the fragile brand they've spent years trying to rebuild post-Megxit. Or maybe, just maybe, this is a test. A test to see if the palace underestimates her. If they think they can slowly chip away at her family's standing bit by bit without retaliation. But if so, they've clearly forgotten who they're dealing with. Because Meghan doesn't just respond, she counter-punches. And when she does, it's rarely subtle. It's personal, emotional, and calculated to dominate the news cycle for days. Think about it. How long did that Oprah interview live rent-free in everyone's mind? How many global headlines did Spare generate? Meghan knows how to control a narrative when she's ready. So if you think this digital deletion is the end of the story, you haven't been paying attention. It's just the beginning of another royal showdown. And when the next chapter drops, whether it's a bombshell interview, a rebranding power move, or a quietly damning leak, it won't just target the palace's tactics, it'll question their morals, their traditions, and their future. Because Meghan doesn't just want to be heard. She wants to be impossible to ignore. And judging by what's coming, she just might get her wish. Stay close. This game of royal chess is far from over.